What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another Unreal Engine 5 game development livestream where we're back in our Deck Knight project, a game built from scratch using Unreal Engine 5, C++ blueprints, the gameplay ability system plugin, and all of that good stuff. So today we're going to continue our push for our custom projectile pooling system. And over the days I wasn't streaming, I've been working on listing out some of the things that we need, which is quite a lot of stuff. So we'll have to see how useful any of this stuff will sort of be. I'm hoping we won't need a lot of it, but we might have to just construct it in such a way that we would need some of it. So I'm going to be having this on my other screen here. And we're just going to hopefully kind of vibe code today. Just kind of work with the data structures that we need to make. So that's what we're going to do. So hopefully it'll work out. So let's make a new use struct. And yeah, I don't know if it'll ever need to be blueprintable, but let's make everything blueprintable. And we're going to call this F projectile visual data. And we'll need a couple things. And we're going to work for now with soft references, and we'll just maybe they'll be okay if it's hard references. It depends on how bad these things. I think, in general, soft references are probably preferred, so maybe we'll just stick with it. So the first one will be tsoft class. No, tsoft object pointer, I think, and then use static mesh. And we'll call this, projectile mesh. And then in here we have F projectile data, which is then this internal projectile data. So I don't know if I want to have a struct of structs. So I'll just make another struct parameter. Just do now. Let's just see what that looks like in practice. And one thing I'm kind of trying to think and consider about is, we have the visual data, we have like the projectile mesh, like, should that be something I kind of force into the data asset, or can I also pass it along in a different structure? Like, can I just say, hey, pull it from the weapon object that you're getting? Or is it okay that it lives in such a way? We'll have to see in practice how it all kind of works and plays like. So we could just do each thing kind of one at a time, constructing everything, doing our best to confirm that it all kind of works. Probably have some debug draws for our projectiles. We'll figure that out eventually. So I think we have an example of the data, right? So DA projectile data example. So we have data and then visuals, projectile visual data, and then the mesh, and then it's gonna be a static mesh. I don't know if we would ever want to have it as a skeletal mesh. I think that could be just a rule that we establish to say, okay, our mesh, we're going to be using static mesh, not skeletal mesh. I think that's reasonable. I mean, we could say it's not even required, right? But that seems to be visually what I'm hoping for. So the next one is the Niagara. So we could do another thing. So use property. So not a material, but it's going to be a new Niagara particle, or is it? What's the Niagara system, maybe? I don't know if I need to include a lot of this stuff. Let's see. And we'll call this. So we'll do projectile trail. And then we're gonna have a couple of these, honestly. So projectile impact. Fire. So those are the visual stuff. And now if same thing for sounds. I gotta think about what the type is for that, but let's just start with what it gives me and just go from there. So it's gonna be you. What's the name of the audio files? Let's go to like one of these action packs. So there's cues and waves. So there's sound mixes, sound submix. Anything for a hit. So I swear we could. Let me look at the gameplay cues. So gameplay cue. I know there's foot plant, and then there should be like a footstep. Maybe I can ascertain the sound here. So it's a meta sound. I have to look at what the base class could possibly be with meta sound compatibility, because I might want to use waves, like dot waves. Might want to use sound cues. Let's see. Final class use sound base. Okay, so use sound base. So projectile travel SFX. Now let's just compile that and let's just make sure everything so far is compatible. And then once we do these SFXs, we should be good on the visual side of things, and we would just need to then kind of start implementing these things. Like we need to introduce lifetime for these object pools or projectiles, have some sort of callback from when it expires, so that I can get put back into the pool, for example, and then you good? Sorry. So yeah, let's look at the data asset, make sure everything is still kosher. There's our projectile data example, visuals, visual data, right? So mesh, trails, Niagara effects, Niagara effects, Niagara effects, great. SFX, yes. Is there meta sounds? What's the name of that one meta sound? Did I do it hit or did I do it impact? Oh, it's steps, right? Okay, so MS would impact, for example. Is that? Yes, it's compatible. So far, so good. What I don't know if we need to, I don't know if I want to asynchronously load things. Like, it could be like in the initial stuff, like the projectile won't spawn until these things are loaded. But like to me, like maybe it's not necessary. Like I could try to just load them on the spot and just see what hiccups come in. So yeah, that's the visual data. So now we need to make sure that we pass this information along to the actual projectile with the projectile pooling system, right? So we do this, get available projectile, return projectile to pool, add projectiles to pool, that's the internal, and then spawn and claim projectile, that's what we're doing there. So we eventually call instantiate projectile from data, right? And then that's where we start handling some of this stuff. And then we eventually add it, and then we get the new projectile. And so after we instantiate everything, the last thing we do, there's a lot of stuff that we eventually do that we quote unquote kind of activate. So I don't know if I want to have separate functions for like handling each section, but maybe that's okay. So where can I do this? And let's see if it's redundant in any sort of way. Look at projectile damage, damage curve row, weapon stuff. A lot of stuff might be unnecessary. Healing curve row. Yeah, projectile data asset, instantiate data. So we do something like this. So you function. Let's say bool. So B or no bool. What we say? Instantiate from data, but the visual data, but we're gonna maybe pass along this type. So when we call this, we want to say if instantiate data, and we're going to say what? Projectile, an asset, visual data, right? Or what is it called? Projectile visual data. Yeah. I like to move stuff like this, right? And then we gotta start loading shit. So what do we have really in a projectile? A lot of the stuff we're gonna have to remove or rethink because there's the projectile movement component, there's the collision component, but there's no, I guess, root level visual components, which okay. Maybe it would be I don't know if I want to create components on the fly because I feel like it should just be shared and you instantiate them. Like we could see, hey, if there is no like projectile mesh data, we don't tick that component and stuff like that, or we keep it hidden and we don't worry about it. So let's look at a arrow base, right? So in here we have a static mesh component by default, right? But there's a couple things that we want to make sure that this thing does by default as well. So let's create this one. So new property, visible anywhere, blueprint read only, character projectile. Yeah, sure. Like the only thing I think that needs to be persistent as a component is the trail. Everything else is one shot. It can be just, we could spawn the Niagara effect when we need to. I think. Maybe it's redundant. So we're going to do class, do static mesh component, visual mesh component, go, commenting there. Okay, now we should go into the constructor. So we got here to group stuff. Now we got constructed, right? So projectile visual mesh component equals create default subject. Boom, boom, boom. Good, good, good. Now we'll do a section down here for this projectile visual mesh component. We don't want to do that. We want to set collision enable to false. We don't want this to be any sort of whoops, collision type. I mean, what was it asking for? Let me look. It's collision. Let's look at some of the modified properties of the static mesh here. So, like, we may need to modify the rotation, so we would need to pass in some sort of transform. In a perfect world, we would just have some sort of agreement on I guess how the meshes are modeled and like what their axes are and what their rotations are, but I don't think we'll have that sort of benefit here. Let's just do a mesh component. I don't know if that's necessary. We'll do it anyway. And then projectile, visual mesh component. And where did it do? What was the last one? Hopefully that's enough. We'll put a comment here. Common properties of the projectile. There you go. So most likely we're going to need some sort of transform override. So it might just need to be for the trail and the mesh, right? So I'll have to make new properties here. I wonder if I can make a property show up based on whether or not a parameter is set. Does that make sense? Let's see. So no, not like that. So we're going to f transform. So projectile mesh transform override. So we'll have to make sure we put a comment on this one specifically. Let's see if AI does it for me good enough. Okay, but then now there should be, I hope, some sort of meta. I always forget the syntax. I'll have to look it up. So edit conditions, hide. So the meta equals edit condition equals projectile mesh not equal pointer. I don't know if this needs to be in quotes or not. We'll see. And then edit condition hides. So let's see what that looks like. So we'll also have to make sure we reset these transforms when we return everything back into the object pool. So I don't think we need these transform overrides, honestly, for expire and impact. I think that should be a contract I sign, that these things don't need to be that need to have some sort of additive stuff, not for these projectiles. Let's see. So data, visuals. All right, so we don't see the property, but if I set projectile mesh to anything, still doesn't show. So that doesn't work. Thought we were onto something clever. Yeah, the other option is doing like a bool. Okay. But because it's a soft object, it could be an issue. Okay, so I have to use dot null. Okay, so if not projectile mesh dot is null. Let's see. And then if this does work, then I would do the same thing for like the projectile trail, for example. And then the transform I apply will have to be applied to the local transform of the component. Okay. Okay. Doesn't really work like I hoped it would. Meta condition, edit condition, projectile mesh dot is null. Maybe there's some references online to see how they get that to work. Seems like it needs to be. I guess it can't be like a soft class reference. But maybe okay, maybe it's fine. Maybe it doesn't matter. We'll leave it there just in case, but whatever. Then we'll do the same thing again for the trail. And then that should be enough. I guess there needs to be like a traveling sound. Maybe there needs to be also a sound component. Get sound. Submix. Media player, sound class. Oops. Is there an audio? Used to play a sound, so yeah, there's the sound. Okay. What is it? A audio component. Make that. For this. Hopefully it's valid. This would be the section where so add common properties for audio component. Later, to do. We'll start with the main visuals of it all. So let's compile that. And what I want to do first is go back into the projectile, which I am. Cool. And we'll go to the instantiate visuals. And so I want to say if in project, what is it? In and I would just say do static mesh. Not like that, but synchronous. Does this need to be reference? By const too, right? Yeah. Not worried about making the actual function const for now. I don't want to set simulate physics though. I want to set transform equals so that should work. At least show a visual. Fingers crossed that everything is compiling. Got a cute kitty in the basket today, like always. Google. Okay. So let's do the. Let's get rid of some of this stuff. Bow, right? So let's go arrow bow. Let's throw you in, and let's not do anything with the transform just yet. So hopefully everything still compiles. Great. Let's go to our was it bow? We should have, I forget, or is it just yeah, ranged base, ranged basic attack. We had the spawn and claim, and we get all of here. And then you know, for now I'm debugging it like that. So far, I feel like there should be something. Or a crash. So we're gonna go in slow motion. Do we see anything? We don't. Doesn't mean bad yet. Okay. Let's not show the collision. Just so we have a clear view of everything. Scale seems fine. Maybe we can also go over here. Let's put a breakpoint. Do we even get there? We do. Well, the mesh is being set. So let's look again. Maybe the scale is weird. Maybe I'm not attaching it appropriately. Well, should. What if I were to make this thing, like, huge? Do we see anything fucked up? Yes. Yes, we do. But it doesn't move. Well, that tells me maybe something's wrong with the transform. Just for the sake of example, let's not put the transform. Okay, close the blind. I don't know how much that helped. Okay. Let's go into the outliner. There should be at least one, so there should be one projectile. So this one's somewhere. Okay, so it's sticking out of the ground. Well, okay, so it's not really attached. So maybe that's part of the problem. Then what can I forget the setup attachment, right? I think that might be correct. I don't think I did a Niagara component yet, so we'll just do those two for now. So let's see if that changed anything for us. So far, so good. Look, so in theory, we should see it. Maybe not the first time because it's it's loading synchronously, but let's see. Hey! Alright. Not bad. So we should now be able to reinstate our transform override. If we wanted to, right? So for example, we did want it to be what? We could, I guess we could override the rotation. Let's not do the scale. And then we might want to do a little bit. X. Well, let's do that. So in theory, this should give us results. Shoot. Right? And, in theory, we could make it whatever size we want. I want to make it double the size. It should be double the size, which I believe it is. Which, awesome. For now, we might make it 1.5 or something. So step 1, done. Like, we just don't want gravity and things like that eventually. Well, let's do piece by piece. Let's just confirm things work as we want. So that part's done. So then we can say if in projectile visual data. Let's not do the audio yet. Let's do the Niagara, at least the base one. Document everything. I do Niagara component. I'm not entirely sure what should be the base settings. So there's scale and all that stuff. Transform. Yeah, nothing really crazy. So I should be able to just rock that in. So we'll go into the constructor. It's not properties of that, but yeah, so we need to do all the instantiation. So projectile, that component, good. Set up the attachment. Good. We could say maybe set auto activates as false. That, then we should be able to come back down here. We could say and projectile visual data dot projectile trail. Okay, I'm missing blue. I guess I can switch it here to the source. Let me move all the components until one. That. This should still be kosher, I hope. Here's what's wrong now. Do I also need Niagara system? Really just... Yeah. I feel like things could probably be cleaner, but for now, let's keep rolling with the punches. So we're here. I'm gonna say you system that so thank you, autocomplete. I think that's all we need, so let's check it out. Then, if this works, then we'll test the audio. Then we'll have to do impacts, but then impacts need to do all this stuff. So, okay, so we do the class here. And then we need to do a lifetime, so we could do impacts, and we could do expire, and maybe have callbacks if we need them. I need to create some delegates. I don't think that's a big deal. Then we can maybe move on to the movement data. Like again, like I don't know if there's much concern. I think it's okay that we can have projectile speeds resolved on their own. Scalable float. And then yeah, enabling gravity and gravity scale and all that stuff. And then collision shape stuff, and then the effects, area of effect. And then the pooling data we don't need, I don't think. But then the runtime payload as well. And then we'll have to figure out how that kind of integrates into the damage pipeline a bit better and the healing pipeline a little bit better. So we're going to be at this for probably a few weeks, I'd imagine. But hopefully it will pay off in dividends for performance and for modularity and scalability. So fingers crossed. Because we'll have to prove it with my arrow for the player and then also the enemy's arrow. Make sure it's kind of compatible. So we have all the data, we have all this. So now we should be able to do the trail. So what effect do we have on this trail? This fire trail. And maybe we can use like maybe a chooser or something. For like these properties. So we could say, hey, it's a fire arrow, pull from this thing and do that. Or we just make, you know, the data structure for each type of arrow. Maybe not a big deal. Might just be a lot of data, right? Like repetitive data. But yeah, one thing at a time. So there's all that. We don't scale it much or at all. So let's just see if this loads. It does. So that's awesome. Last but not least is this audio component. I don't know if this needs to really be a tool, but we'll see. Um, Now we can just do if in projectile audio, but yeah, obviously that's not the name of it. So travel SFX. Oops. Say you. Oh, so you sound bass. Is there a looping, or is that handled there? So let's see. What was the other thing it was recommending? No, go ahead. Okay. So let's cut the music for a second. I think I have some Archer SFX. So we have some waves, arrow swish. So let's assume we want swish. Swish, swish, bish. So the travel SFX I think should be higher up in the setup. And well, yeah, I think we're also missing the impact Niagara effects, right? Um, wait, okay, no, we're missing the sounds for that, right? I think we need to have VFX and SFX at the ends of these names. But yeah, we'll put the music back on while we're doing the. Well, I don't actually. Let's not do a hallelujah. Let's just reload. Yo, yo, yo! What's up, Sanyam? How you doing? Thanks for popping in. How's life? Build succeeded. Awesome. Okay. Let's turn the music off now. So in theory, we should hear a subtle swish noise. Let's see. Swish. One, so wave, swish. We should hear that. So put it in. We hear it. We do. Kind of delayed, right? But it exists. I don't like how delayed some of these things are, but technically it works. Put other ones in here. Hate how that might have to put in attenuation settings and stuff, but it's whatever. Well, like audio will be a whole mess of it. So if we put attenuation default into this thing as an example, so swish 1, back in. Yeah, has attenuation settings, so seems fine. Probably could be better, but it's fine. But we know it's working, so that's awesome. So now let's update our naming conventions here. So we'd say VFX for VFX and SFX for sound. So VFX, FX, and SFX. So need to introduce some sort of lifetime. We could have a new section for just pooling data, but I don't know. I feel like projectile, just projectile data, for example, maybe that could be in here. So you property. That. But then we need to not actually set lifetime. We need to kind of create a timer. How long have you been working on this this project? Like on and off for a couple. Like I had no real direction for the project for a long time, so I was kind of just working on nonsense for like maybe 2 years, and now I'm kind of working with this actual like idea for a game for maybe like a year, on and off in my free time. About like I would say on average like 4 hours a week. Wish it could be more, but don't got it in me. So yeah, we need to do a couple things. We need to, we gotta create a timer, of course. So let's create a section for the timer. And we're gonna say, so projectile. I don't know, projectile lifetime timer. Seems a little weird, but it should be okay. And I don't know if it needs to be a U property, we'll make one. So you think you will complete it, or is it just gonna hang in the air? Just okay, me no harm. I hope it goes somewhere. Someday, somehow, but you know, for now. It's just to keep my creative juices going, helping me learn. Trying to foster community of other developers, like-minded people, try to grow. So, in a perfect world, yeah. But for now, probably not. So we need a new handle. So declare dynamic multicast delegate param. I don't think it needs to be one param, honestly. It could be just that. And we'll call it projectile lifetime expired. Should just be that. I don't know if I need to return self. Like, I don't know what the point would be for this, but like probably for just for like debugs and stuff. But for now, we'll keep it like that. So we have the timer, but then we need some events and stuff as well, or yeah, events or functions, however we want to call it. So we'll make a new function. Oops. on lifetime expired. And then we want to call, so we also need the delegate itself, right? So we need to make another U property like that. I don't know if it needs to be blueprintable. We'll leave it as is. So we'll say broadcast, and we'll say timer. Is that what I called it? No. Validate. And then we gotta say, handle object pool, return the logic in separate function. Then we could just say if file data, right? Data asset dot if expire VFX is valid. Yeah, but I don't know if I like that kind of nested ifs. It's 11:30 p.m. right here, and I'm feeling very sleepy. Sorry to leave you today. Hey, no problem. I appreciate you stopping in for the time you did. So have a good rest. Have a good rest of your week. Be safe out there. We're starting to get more light a little bit. You guys can still see me okay. I could just encapsulate this a bit like this instead, so like but then now we need to actually set the timer. So after we instantiate everything, so we're instantiating the visual data, that's fine. Again, I don't think it needs to really be anything. Then I want to set the timer. Oh. I always forget the syntax here. I don't know if I want to do it in a lambda either, but we'll see. So we need to do get world timer manager set timer, and it's the U function, so it should be compatible. Then I just need to get the actual time. I like that. Oh, I'm hoping, so there's in rate. All time set timer. We'll have to see what that looks like in practice. So let's put a breakpoint here. Let's compile and let's see what burns. So what gets set on fire. Okay. I guess I have to wait until this object pooling system is ready before I can do this. And I probably want to do a profiling session once I have it working too, to see what gains I possibly could get. Let's go in, and now I want to have a lifetime of, I'll say 0.5 seconds. Then after 0.5 seconds, it should breakpoint. And it does, I think. Let's do it a little faster. We'll do 0.2. Breakpoint back on. All seems fine. There. So let's make sure we see our expiration VFX. So we might make it the same kind of like impact VFX. So if I go to the projectile example, we eventually, I think, do we do a gameplay cue? We do a camera shake, which maybe we need, maybe we don't. But yeah, there is actually a gameplay cue, which one could argue maybe I need to be doing it as a gameplay cue, because it has like the burst particles and burst camera shake and all that stuff. Maybe it's more scalable. I forgot about gameplay cues for a second there. Yeah, we could make, construct a hit result or stuff like that. Maybe that's actually not a bad idea to make it a gameplay cue for impacts. Could save on a couple of things. So I'll write this down. Yeah, we don't need really a reference to anything, right? Let's try, and we'll just see how that looks in practice. So we'll just add a new parameter. I think it has to be a specific type. So if we go to GCN burst, on burst, on execution, all this stuff, but I guess there has to be a static. One of these has to be the tag, right? F the gameplay cue parameters. While active, so yeah, it's just F gameplay tag with the category like this. So we can do that as well. So maybe we can maybe support both if we really wanted to, but again, we're creating exceptions for ourselves. Maybe we just have to say just make it a gameplay cue and we're done, right? So let's go into our data. bottom like that. That. And then we say in our, for example, our VFX in our projectile, we can go here. So yeah, we are setting it like that, right? But we could maybe do something where if if projectile data asset almost, it's going to be if tool. And then we say what? Because then we would have to maybe do an else. One or the other, I guess. So at this point, this is kind of, I guess, not wrong. We can potentially use the same component to spawn the impacts and stuff. So maybe that's okay. We'll test that as well. But ideally, we should now be able to say what F gameplay, Q parameters, and then we have to say, I don't know if it's like execute gameplay queue. Forget how it was written in the blueprint. So let's just quickly recompile it and open it again just to look at the syntax in blueprint. They have to be gameplay queue. Is there not like a static? So they said so there is a new gameplay queue manager. Complicated, and then what we do. So actor. What if I were to kind of saying like get owner? That, so that's valid, but what parameters do we need to construct? At least a vector for the location, I would imagine. So ability level, instigator, location. There's effect level, effect pauser. That, like, I don't know what's necessary, honestly. Like, potentially, like, hit result data, but maybe it's not necessary. So normal, we don't really need to pass in a normal source object or anything like that. I think that's safe enough. So the issue, there doesn't seem to be an issue. Let's see. Cool. This kitty is so cute. You guys can't see her. Get her a little bit more in view. Kind of. Okay, so compiled. Hip hip hooray. Amazing. And I'll probably want to compartmentalize this in another function, I would imagine, like, you know, on lifetime expired effects, stuff like that. So, gameplay queue dot magic dot right. So that. Well, let's see if we pass all of that. Okay, we get here. Seems valid. Instigator is null. Oh my god. The kitty jumped. Oh! Say hi to everybody, Boo Boo. Okay. What's this? Hello. So yeah, we're not properly instantiating the data about the effect causer and stuff like that. I don't know if that's going to cause a crash or anything. It doesn't, which is great, but yeah, we do want to add that somewhere. I assume under wherever we're calling this. We'll have to just eventually do that. Let me look at where I'm calling this, because yeah, there's the data, there's spawn and claim, which does all this. So yeah, we probably, so owner is owner. So can I just do a new projectile? Instigator owner. It's instigator. So instigator is a pawn. So this should probably be pawn. Because where else am I doing this? We don't need the burst stuff anymore. Here's my logic. Either I guess I could do get owner. And that seems to work. You see it kind of just explode midair. Seems good. But yeah, with the pooling system, we'll change this to a pawn. Just have to change that signature here as well. And then that should be Gucci. So we'll compile that. We'll look at things one more time. And then we'll need to do the same thing for hit. And there might be some redundant code when it comes to projectile expiring and projectile hitting. Maybe that's okay. Let's look again. So yeah, it explodes after 0.2 seconds, which is fine for now. What we'd expect. So let's, in the next 10 or 15 minutes, let's just handle the hit option as well. So we'll make another one of a delegate. And maybe 1 per M is fine. We can do this. Then we'll go down. We don't need a timer, but we need this delegate, so. That, and then we'll need the function. Yeah, we technically do have the hit event, but we'll make one as well for this. Have that. But yeah, somewhere up here, yeah, here on hit. A bunch of this stuff. So yeah, there's all this stuff on can ricochet. And then there's on this projectile hit event. Which is this implementation. Maybe can also just do it here. It seems to be redundant. Oh. What to do? Same model, whatever. So we should be able to say not hit, but on broadcast hit, and then we can call this. And we're going to do a lot of similar things. We don't have to, I guess we still need to invalidate some timers. We don't really want to say it expired, but we do want to make sure we invalidate that timer. Let's grab that. Hey, hey Dylan, what game is this? It's a small game. I don't know if it's small, but it's an action game built from scratch with Unreal 5. Where we're trying to combine, melee and ranged combat with the use of cards that can augment your abilities for your weapons and your player character, where you can kind of slot active and passive abilities to make your character stronger for each round, persisting with waves against enemies and other AI that can play cards against you that could mitigate your cards, make you weaker, try to play your defenses in different ways. So we're just working on a projectile pooling system, working on the data that constructs these projectiles so that we can share a pool of projectiles between enemies and the player, so that when we spawn these things, we don't have to keep creating and destroying and possibly causing hitches in the game. So we're trying to build for scalability, even though maybe it's not necessary, but this project is also just a learning thing for myself to continue growing as a developer. So yeah, right now we have just dummy enemies that we can spawn. We have some basic weapons like these daggers that you can use to hit enemies with. We have the charged bow where we can shoot projectiles that ricochet. Right now the basic bow doesn't hit anything because we're refactoring this one as the use case for the pooling system, so we have to build onto it. Wow, it looks very cool. I like that kind of combat and deck building. Keep it up. I appreciate it. So we'll hope we can get somewhere. So, we're trying to do some fun stuff. Yeah, and that's why I'm using the gameplay ability system for this project, just because it's pretty scalable. You can have different effects. that modify attributes. You can have abilities that do different things. So basically, the cards just need to hook into the ability system component to grant you an ability or to. So on projectile hit, we're doing all this. So visual data, yeah. So I don't know if we need to have different impact effects. Like, can we treat expiring and impact is the same? I would maybe say yeah for now. All that seems to be the same. Seems okay. But now we should be able to pass in the hit result. I think I would have to look up the C++ for it. But we can do something like make gameplay parameters from hit result. So I'm wondering if that's also from this manager. F gameplay, viewed parameters. Let's see. So I'm assuming I can find the code for this too, right? So, okay, so it's this. Ideally, we could just write it like that. Similarly, we can say something like that. And then that's redundant. So let's see. And yeah, so I keep sidetracking myself on some system stuff, but you know, we made some good progress on the weapon side of things. We have daggers, we have a sword, but we're gonna have to change it to be sword and shield. We have a ranged weapon with the bow. I want to introduce a great sword. I want to also eventually introduce like a magic staff as another option. But then we need to start pushing the cards again, more interesting weapon loops or resource loops. So yeah. So wait, hit result cannot be defined as it is already defined in scope. Sorry, what? Function parameter hit result cannot be defined. That I'm not too sure what that means. Let's figure that out. The build error is caused by the name shadowing. You have a member variable named hit result. Okay. So I have a member variable for hit result. Where am I constructing that, honestly? Because if I have that already, maybe I don't need it. Seems funky. We'll keep it. We'll have to continue the refactoring of it all, but that should be enough. And then I should go back in here, and I just need to update the signature here, and then let's see. And if we can get this to work, we can call it a night. And I'll be a happy boy. And again, the expectation is when it hits something, we see those same effects. So, fingers crossed. We'll have to update the lifetime. So instead of the lifetime being 0.2, we'll make it 2. And let's see if we even get the hit event. We could also go to the source here. Yeah, on here. But we should see it moving in the air and then hit the ground at some point. Okay. Not looking good for our heroes. I assume are we not setting a collision profile type? So when we bring into the pooling system, we do the movement comp. That took enable. No, that's returning to the pool. Where's the one for spawning? So we spawn it. Actor, good. Stand shape there. I hope. I think for now, what I would need to say is, for now, force. Oh. Not the movement comp, but projectile, collision comp, like that. Hope that's all I need to do. If this doesn't work, then we'll have to just continue this next week. Yeah, because this weekend I'm going to Sweden. Go see Lincoln Park. It's gonna be fun. I'm excited. I need a break. Okay, moment of truth. Do I have the breakpoint still? I do. Hopefully it's not gonna hit me. Okay, so still still nothing. I don't know if I need to do anything else. There's the projectile example. We have the collision component. Sphere radius, fine. Do I need to? All right, so I need to do generate hit events. All right, last try. I swear. And again, we'll force it in the same way. Okay, and then what's the parameter for this? So simulation. Let's just try this one parameter and we'll go from there. This time though, for real, if it doesn't work, if it does work, if it doesn't work, we got called in a night. Okay. Fingers crossed, everybody. Just watch the collision. Not showing. Sus. Sus. So let's look at the collision component. We see it? Yeah, it's there. Seems like it would do what it needs to do. Okay, so that's where I'm going to call it. We tried. So we'll continue this next week. So thanks everybody for watching. It's always appreciated. If you're still watching but aren't following me here on Twitch, a follow would be much appreciated. Also, check out and subscribe over at YouTube. And feel free to join our Discord, hang out, ask questions, learn with each other, all that good stuff. So enjoy your night. Like I said, I'm not going to be here for the rest of the week, so we'll continue next week. So best of luck out there for you folks, and I'll see you next time.